Okay, so the first thing that I'm doing here is I'm using XSplit again. I don't know about this StreamYard. Serious. I paid like $340 Canadian for StreamYard, okay? And the first thing I get is a whole lot of flashing, right? They're trying to say it's not on their end. When you do a stream, what happens is the stream, it goes through the internet, right? And it goes through your host first. And in this case, it would be StreamYard, right? Through their servers, and then their servers, they process. Can you hear me? Because I'm wondering if I have a problem with XSplit. I don't want to have to repeat myself. So anyway, I'm using XSplit, and first of all, the first thing I need to know is, can you hear me? Because I have a problem with volume sometimes. Because it's a little complicated. Okay, yes, we can hear you. All is good. All right, so I'm not going to try and get fancy with what I'm doing here. I just want to show you what has come into my possession. And it's been in my possession, people, the whole time. Right? But, you know, sometimes when things happen, you get so overwhelmed, right? I didn't realize that I had actually 3 pictures of SHAMAY from the time she was in the hospital in April of 2018. And this just happens to be one of them. And I have 2 more to show you. And then I wanted to quickly show you the little card that Andre made for SHAMAY, because you have to remember, Andre went to bed, right? And everything was fine, people. And then he woke up, and he wasn't even allowed to go downstairs. He just knew that a whole bunch of shit was going on. And I never did take him to the hospital, people, because, you know, clearly SHAMAY was gone. And I just didn't feel it was okay to traumatize him to that extent. So I stayed home for the most part while Tisha and Paige and other close friends of SHAMAY, you know, family friends, stayed with her, right? And so Andre never got to see SHAMAY. He never got to say goodbye. None of that stuff, people. So anyway, I have his little card here that was in a bag that I've had since this all occurred. And you know, I'm working on trying to file a lawsuit, so this is just taking a mental break from that. But this is so important because you have to remember, you know, we were told to put on gloves, and we were told to put on gloves from the very beginning. Okay, I'm trying to do something here. Now, what I like about XSplit is you can do stuff like this much easier than on StreamYard. Right? Do you see? Okay, I just have to learn how to use the program better and get a better computer. Okay, because with XSplit, you know, like I was saying before, your information as you stream goes through their server, and then they process it and then upload it to YouTube, which YouTube ends up processing. So if it's not being processed correctly at the site of where, you know, it's supposed to be processed, right, then you're going to get a lot of flashing, and that's what happens on StreamYard. Also, too, they don't have a lot of features. I can't do this on StreamYard. I can only do this on XSplit. But XSplit is a little more complicated, so if you don't have your configuration set properly or know what you're doing when it comes to the mics, like me, you get that looping going on, right? And then also too, I am working on an older computer, right? I am working on an older computer, right? That what do you call it? That goes through a lot of UPS, right? Usage. Oops. It goes through a lot of UPS usage, right? And because I tend to bring up a lot of screens and stuff like that, then it just makes it a little, you know, harder on the processor, right? And the computer itself is old. So anyway, I'm using XSplit here. You can hear me. It's not looping. So this is good. So what I want to show you is these are pictures that I've actually had all along. You know, through the all hustle and bustle, they got put into a bag, right? They got put into a bag, you can see. And they've been sitting beside me here in this little corner since Shamay's been dead, basically. Right? And then, you know, the subject of Shamay came up because I'm working on this paperwork, right? And then, you know, I'm asking questions because in the medical files, you know, they're trying to explain the swelling to be a natural occurrence as an edema, right? For example, I'll just use that as an example, right? You know, versus listing it down as the body decomposing and bloating, because what was happening, people, was they were first they iced her down for the first couple 2-3 days with ice packs. They brought her temperature down to 32, 33 degrees. I don't think you can go below 33 degrees. I can't remember if I read 32 degrees, but you get my point, right? And then when they took off the ice packs, what happened was immediately her body started to overheat. It spiked and it started to overheat to the point where the people in the room were demanding that they cool her down. Now you have to remember, people, she was bloated and swollen by 9 p.m. on April 11th, okay? So 3 days later, you know, she's continuing to bloat and swell, right? As, you know, she's now heating up, right? So they put cooling blankets on her and a few miscellaneous, what do you call those things? Ice packs, right? Ice packs, right? You can see it in her fingers. You can see. I don't know if you can see my mouse. I don't know if you can see my mouse moving around, but look where this Mother Mary is, right? Right here with the gold, right? There's the beads, okay? Look at her fingers. Look at the knuckles, okay? Now multiply that through her whole body, right? As they're writing it down in her medical files that it was edema, when in fact it was not, okay? It was her body decomposing as they were trying to hide it, people, right? And then through that conversation with you know, the people who were around, I asked them, I said, have you know, did you see any hair? Because they shave bodies, right, before they embalm them. And so anyway, somebody had taken it upon themselves, who cared about Shamay very much, to paint her toenails. And through that process, you can see it right there, right? Let's see if it comes up. It should. There it is. I'll try and make it bigger. This is what I like about XSplit. This is what you can do. This is why I like to use XSplit. Right? I'm just not very good at it yet, people. That's all. So, as you can see, right, longtime family friend, like a sister, you know, wanted SHAMAY to look good, as young women like to do, right? Took it upon herself to paint SHAMAY's toenails, not realizing that SHAMAY was dead. But if you notice, do you notice the gloves, people? Right? Do you see the yellow, you know, smock? Because, you know, by 9 o'clock on, after she was embalmed, they made everybody who walked through that door make sure that they gloved up and covered up, because all of a sudden, out of the blue, SHAMAY had this superbug that came from the environment that apparently everybody has, but considering her state of affairs, it was best for the public to put on gloves and, what do you call, you know, smocks, right? Not to protect SHAMAY, but to protect them because of the superbug that was on SHAMAY's body. Okay? So this is why you see the gloves on Paige's hand, because she was expected to wear them to protect herself from the superbug that was on SHAMAY's body. This is what the hospital staff is telling us, people. Okay? Now, I obviously can't get into detail when I write my notice of claim, but this is the stuff that the judge is going to throw out of court. Okay? And the reason I'm doing this is because I know these bastards are going to try and throw it out of court, right? But there's more than one way to get justice. And it's really unfortunate that there's too many people out there that think that it can't happen to them. Okay? So in the meantime, SHAMAY's body is fluctuating with temperature. As soon as they took off the ice packs, you see, they were okay for the first 2-3 days, right? Because it kept her body at 33 degrees. So nobody noticed shit, right? But as soon as they took off those ice packs, people, it spiked to the point where she got feverish in terms of so-called body temperature, where everybody freaked out and started demanding for the nurses to cool her down. So then they brought out the cooling blankets and, you know, an ice pack here and an ice pack there, and apparently they were flipping them around. They'd take them off, they'd put them back on. They'd take them off, they'd put it back on. Because you have to remember, the dead body was in an ambient room temperature in terms of what's comfortable for the average person going in to visit, right? They can't have people going into a fucking freezer, right? Because then for sure people would notice something. But if they have them walking into a hospital room thinking that the person is on ventilator machine just because they have a ventilator machine in the room. Hold on. Right? Just because they had a ventilator machine in the room doesn't mean, people, that the ventilator machine was working. It was just there for show. Okay? Because if you notice this machine here, and if you've been watching my videos, it looks very, very different than the one that was on the 16th or 17th, 18th or whatever it was, right? I have another video, another picture of a different machine that looks more like an embalming machine that's been cased over with some metal to hide the fact that it was running fluid through SHAMAY's body in terms of formaldehyde. Not oxygen, people, okay? But in this case, because this was taken in between the 13th and 14th, you know, I have to like really crunch the numbers, but this was taken around the 13th, right? Mind you, though, the ice caps are off on her legs, because if you can see there, I don't know what happens. This is so heartbreaking. Such a young girl. Yeah, it is heartbreaking, and it shouldn't be done in vain. Her death shouldn't be in vain. You know, and this is the thing, Karen. Her death is in vain because I'm not strong enough to get that information out there. People talk about illegal organ harvesting. They've been talking about that shit for years. But it's so hard to prove, right? Because you have to basically catch them in an act. It's like a thief. You know, you can't really charge somebody for stealing something just because you think they did it. You have to catch them in the act of actually stealing it. Well, this is kind of like the same thing. Organ harvesting, illegal organ harvesting, is another form of theft that's very hard to prove, right? Just because they put a body on a bed and hook it up, so-called, to a ventilator machine with a few other tubes hanging beside the dead body, right? And they can tweak the environment in terms of lighting, you know, how people come into contact with the deceased, because you have to remember, she was dead. Only we were being told she was alive because they had to play the game in order to cover up the illegal organ harvesting. And to buy them time, what they did is they put on ice caps on her body for the first 2-3 days to bring her temperature down, right, to 33, so that they could say, oh, well, it's supposed to help the brain heal itself. Oh, well, it's supposed to help the kidney and the heart and the lungs and everything that we like to put our little dirty hands on to heal. But they're not telling you, no, that's not the truth, though, people. They put those ice caps on to slow down the process of decomposition that occurs even under an embalming situation. Just because a body gets embalmed does not mean that it won't continue to decompose, because it does. And they only have about a week at best, maybe 2, to get done with the fucking funeral and then put that body to rest, because it will continue to decompose throughout the 2 weeks that it was embalmed. Well, this is what was happening at the Surrey Memorial Hospital. And based on that, because they had to fake the funk and try and fool everybody, you know, sooner or later, they had to take off the ice caps. They couldn't keep the ice caps on her body for 8 fucking days straight. So they took them off. And as soon as they took them off, her body jumped. Her temperature jumped. So this is probably around the 14th. Because if you notice, you can see her leg in this picture further back. Now, I'm going to do another video with my camera, okay? And I'll zoom in with it. And then I'll upload it so that you can clearly see where her leg is. So clearly the ice caps were off by this time. Okay? But again, it wasn't long before her body temperature started to rise, because it was decomposing in an ambient environment with blankets on it yet. Right? So then they put some cooling blanket or ice cap back on. Right? And sooner or later, they take it out and it was going up and down, up and down, up and down. They didn't know what the fuck they were doing. Okay? Because this isn't medicine, people. This is sorcery. This is witchcraft. This is the government union sector taking advantage of the public. So in this picture, you can clearly see the ventilator machine, right? With its screen, in terms of the little computer, up above at the very top, okay? But let me tell you something, though. She wasn't on a ventilator. You can't put oxygen into a dead body, okay? Her organs had already been removed. They pinched her off from the neck up. Anything that was running through her face in terms of oxygen was formaldehyde fluid to keep the color tone in place. Everything below was just sitting there and beginning to rot and swell and swell and swell and swell, as they were writing it down in her medical files that she was suffering from edema. By the time they got to the end of the fucking game, of their game, okay, like 18th, they were fucking freaking out, wondering where the family was, because we weren't shutting off the so-called machine fast enough for them, okay? As they were like writing down in there that she, if you pulled back the blankets by the 18th, she was full of fucking blisters. They didn't list them as decomposing blisters, whatever those blisters are called, okay? They listed them down as some medical term just so that it could read right in her medical fucking records. But apparently her body was covered in them from their medical files under some medical condition that they quickly wanted to turn off the machine to throw it out in the fucking garbage. Okay? If she was that so sick with all these blisters underneath the fucking blanket, why were they so busy and hurry up, turn off the machine, turn off the machine? Obviously something was living. It was moving around, growing, expanding, right? That's because her body was decomposing, people. And they lied through it, through the whole fucking process. Listen, how many times can you die? How many times can one person die? Okay? How many times? How many fucking times can one person die? All right? Because now, hold on. How many times can a person die? How many times can a person die? SHAMAY was murdered in her home on April 11th, 2018, between 8 o'clock and 8:30. She was hot capped. Or 8:45, in around that time. I mean, the cops never did their job. They didn't follow up on her last Snapchat. They didn't give a rat's ass about SHAMAY. Okay, bottom line, I don't care what they fucking say. Right? They're clones to some genetic fucking mutation. Alright? After all this fucking Frankenstein science, what else can they be? So anyway, she died, people. She was dead before she went to the hospital. If I didn't believe that, I wouldn't be doing this. I wouldn't be doing anything that I've been doing. Okay? Let's get that straight. So anyway, if you notice in this little picture, right, with that little person laying up on that bed, that represents SHAMAY. And this is Andre, right, never getting to say goodbye to his auntie. So on April 11th, 2018, SHAMAY died in her own home, right? And when the paramedics and the police showed up, they covered it up, right? And they hauled her ass off to the fucking hospital. And then by the 16th, because of that decomposition process, they couldn't hide it anymore, even with their ice caps, even with the embalming fluid, even with their fucking makeup. They had to pronounce her so-called brain dead. So that's two deaths, right? She died April 11th. Then she died on April 16th because some doctor said so, right? After he showed us some fucking brain scan that could have been anybody's brain scan as far as I'm concerned. And then on the day that they shut off the machine, they've got it written in that time of death was. Are you listening to me? They have it written in as time of death at, oh, I don't know, 10:47, something like that. How many times can a person die? That's 3 times that I can think of right there. I know there's a couple more in there in regards to SHAMAY. Okay? Because on the 15th, they started listing, oh, well, you know, something happened. All of a sudden, quick. And then on the 16th, they called me in. Oh, well, this happened. Quick. So, what? She died on the 15th. She died on the 11th. Something happened on the 15th. Some sort of something that freaked them out enough to call. Nothing happened, people. Her body was decomposing. It was falling off her fucking jaw, okay? Her jaw was fucking falling off. Her skin was slipping off. Or, you know, it was like putrid. Putrid, people. It was so putrid, they knew it was putrid that they made people wear fucking gloves and smocks before you even walked in the fucking door. Okay? Like, I'm reading this crap, right? I'm reading your medical files and I can see what they're doing. And, like, I'm writing this notice of claim and I'm like, well, you can't tell them all this shit. Regardless of whether some of these lawyers are watching your videos or not. Like, you know, fuck you, right? Like, you know, I don't know what makes you guys think. Some of you guys, you don't even come from this fucking country. Some of these lawyers I come into contract, just like these doctors, don't even come from this country, people. Okay? I'm dealing with people that don't give a shit about my family. And this is as plain as day as to what happened to SHAMAY. We are a commodity for these people. And because the union is only concerned about itself in terms of its pension plans, right? right? They don't care either. When you say I'm going to take it to court, and the court would be like, so who cares? Right? Privacy of Information Act. You're not allowed to talk about it. Right? You can't get a lawyer. Right? You know, you don't qualify for shit. Because, you know, as far as we're concerned, you're like expendable. And so is your family. So in the meantime, we've got real friends to SHAMAY in the hospital at that time, trying to make her look nice without hairy legs. Right? You know, let me shave your legs, right? Let me do your toenails, right? Because you're going to get better, right? Because I love you. You're my friend. You know, we've been sisters and friends forever and ever and ever. I don't want you to die, right? Maybe if I paint your toenails, you'll feel good about yourself in a spiritual sense, and you'll wake up. Well, this is what you're looking at right here, okay? And I asked this person, when you were doing this, because I noticed on the other picture, her leg is exposed. So you must have looked at her leg. Did you see any hair? And you know what the answer was? No. None. Absolutely none. There wasn't even, you know, when a woman shaves, there wasn't, what is it, stubble? Nothing. 3 days into the fucking game, no stubble, nothing. This was after the ice packs were taken off, so it would have been around 13th, 14th. Okay? Because they had those ice packs on for 2-3 days. I mean, I have to crunch the numbers, but I'm absorbing so much information at one time. There's only so much I can do, right? Point is, no hair was noted anywhere on her legs. And of course, as soon as the nurses realized what the hell was going on, they ran in there and told her she couldn't do this. And because I was oblivious to you know, just whatever, I didn't even realize, people, that I've had these pictures all this time. I mean, I knew I had pictures, but it didn't stand out on me in terms of what I had. So these are new pictures, and this verifies how Fraser Health Authority and their staff put the general public at risk with or without court support, because I don't give a fuck about court anymore, people, other than I'm going to file this shit and they can shove it up their ass, okay? Because what they're doing to the public is wrong. This is so wrong. You don't hook up dead bodies to machines with formaldehyde inside them and play it off like they're alive for fucking 9 days as you pronounce them dead 4 times in those 9 days. When they first showed up, she was dead, right? When they took her to the hospital by the 15th, something snapped and she basically died, because when they did their, what is it called, brain scan on the 16th, it proved that she was brain dead. And then they pronounced her dead again on the fucking 19th when they turned off their little fake respirator, aka embalming machine, to change the color of her face, because that's all it did. Karen, this is so heartbreaking, such a young girl. Natasha Johnson, hi Miss Judy, I'm so hurt for you, poor SHAMAY. Karen, no matter what evidence we have nowadays, the system is that corrupted. They always lie to try and save their own skin. And exactly, and this is what I am up against as the clock is ticking. Okay? Oh wow, that y'all did her toes, love. Well, Natasha, Paige just wanted SHAMAY to, I don't know, she didn't do it for anything other than let me help you to look good, being that you're in a bed completely helpless to do anything for yourself, and you got all these people coming in looking at you. Right? But looking back, I'm glad she did it. And even at the time, I had no problem with it. Right? Because now it's been confirmed that she had no hair, absolutely no stubble. You know how when you shave you get those little what is it called, you know, little, right, the hair is in there, and before it takes a while, right, you can see none of that, because she was so swollen that it even swelled up the bloody pores, people. But it probably had nothing to do with the pores being swelled up. It probably had to do with a fine layer of embalming makeup, okay, on top of the swelling, because of the fluctuation in heat, which accelerated people the decomposition of her body. Warm ambient temperatures only accelerate the decomposition of her body. They only have a week, at best 8 days, to really do the funeral before the signs of decomposition really begin to show. And that's under a funeral, what is it called? You know, situation where in between showings, they put those bodies in cold storage. They don't leave them out for 9 days in an ambient temperature in a hospital room, right? You know, like who does that? Even morgues and funeral homes don't do that. You know, put them in the cold storage and then they'll bring them back out. But before they bring them back out, they touch up what needs to be touched up as the body continues to deteriorate over that 8-day period. Okay? That is the standard of the embalming process. Now, though, technology has brought in other embalming fluids, which they used on SHAMAY, that can actually, you can move limbs. That's why, because they had to be able to move her head to make her look like she was alive, right? So, you know, there's specific bombing solutions made for that purpose. And it's all done for trickery, people, right? Why would you want to move a dead person's head on a hospital bed as you're telling everybody that walks through the door that the person is alive? And just to prove what you said is true, you can go like this and say, oops, see, she moved her head, when in fact it was you who moved her head. And the only reason you could move the head was because the solution in the embalming fluid made it so. Because embalming has been around forever. This is what we're dealing with, right? And I just want people to see this. I want them to be reminded. Let's see what else we got here. Let's look at Andre's little. See, this is what I like about XSplit. Hold on a minute. Hello? So, why aren't we not surprised? I'm still behind on my CIBC Bank credit card that should have been paid off fucking 4 years ago, but besides that point, it's 8:30 in the morning, and they're calling me to find out when I'm going to top off what I owe them. Okay? As if I owe them anything. So there we've got SHAMAY in the hospital bed with everybody standing around hoping that she's going to get better. Andre didn't get to see his aunt because it was too ugly. It was ugly, people, right? And that's why they didn't want anyone taking pictures, because they didn't want it documented as to how ugly it really was. I'm trying to find the other picture here. There. Not that one. That one. Right. Andre used to like to go downstairs into Auntie SHAMAY's room, sit on her bed and be with Amari and hang out with her auntie, with his auntie. Okay. And then somebody that I've known for a long time, they see, this is what I like about XSplit. I like this. This is cool. This reminds me of making web pages. It's just I'm not very good with the settings, that's all. My head is too fuzzy. And sometimes things conflict with my computer because this computer is old. Right? So this was not written by the person who hand wrote every single, and I said I was going to do this a long time ago, and of course I got busy, and that's why that bag just sat there for almost 2 years. But the bag is out now. So anyway, she did each and every one of them. Everybody that was at the memorial, the celebration of life for SHAMAY, basically got one. And these were just the ones left behind. And she took the time, right, to write each one by hand. I don't think she wrote the poem per se. It came from somewhere else. I can't remember where exactly. But this is, you know, something that she had done for SHAMAY. And so I think maybe I should read it now, being that I said I was going to read it in the past. Okay, so before I do that, I'll read A and K. I pray that you get justice. Well, yeah, justice comes in many forms. Like, seriously, if something happens to me, right, for whatever reason, based on, you know, this stuff, anything that's connected to SHAMAY these days, you know, if for some reason something happens to me, you know, people need to, like, fucking follow up on it, okay? Seriously, because it's too easy to bury it in court, right? We learned that with Uncle John, right? And this is not something to bury, because it's like that thief. It's very hard to catch the thief, right? Even though we know they're stealing from us, it's very hard to catch the thief. Well, we've caught the thieves, people. This is the thing. We've caught them, okay? So, you know, I'm going to do the best that I can to hold them to account. But if something seriously does happen to me because of just whatever, then other people need to pick up that torch and have SHAMAY not die in vain and find justice where justice is deserved. Because if people don't, they're going to continue to do this, people. Okay? They're going to do it, and they've been doing it. Right now, it's the big coronavirus. Everybody's all concerned they're going to get, you know, corona. And the government's, like, really playing into it. But you know what? How long has fentanyl been around for, killing off thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of people for the last how many years, people? And the government never fucking did anything about it. And there's a reason for it. It's because of what they're doing to the bodies as they're coming in. And now that they found a way to harvest organs illegally, some of those bodies are going directly to that destination. So let me read this. I have to switch over. Good morning, sweet pea. I will run through these pictures again, but before I do that, I'm just going to read this in honor of Carrie, who wrote it for her. It's not Carrie's poem. I remember Carrie telling me it's not a poem that she wrote herself. She got this from somewhere else, but it really touched her heart. And she took the time to write out this for the people that came to SHAMAY's celebration of life, so that they could all walk away with one as, you know, something to hang on to, right? So I'm going to take the time to read this now, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to show you the 3 new pictures that I've actually had this whole time and didn't realize I had them because of the stress that I'm under with it all. But it clearly shows how hospital staff was making people wear rubber gloves and smocks before they even stepped through the door after the time of 9 p.m. on April 11th, to which that is when SHAMAY's body was embalmed. All right. Let me read this first. For all who loved and knew SHAMAY, I never meant to leave you. Could I have only stayed, we would be going on in life with all the plans we made. Now all the hopes and dreams we've shared, are but sweet memories for you to tuck inside your heart. Now when you remember me, remember all the good times and all the joy we shared. Remember how you touched my life and how I really cared. Think back on all the laughter and wipe away your tears. You still have many miles to go and still have many years. Don't look back, look forward. This day is a brand new start. And as you travel on in life, you'll take a bit of my heart. I never meant to leave you, but still you'll not be alone. For long as my love lives in you, I'll never really be gone. Okay? So Carrie took the time to write that out all on individual papers for SHAMAY. And I've had that sitting over here in a bag with these pictures here since she's died. This is in the hospital when this is in the hospital around the 14th, after they took off the ice packs that had been on her body from the moment I walked into the ICU ward at 9 o'clock. Okay? Can you just leave me be for 15 minutes, please?
Okay.
Okay, because I don't want the interruption.
Okay.
All right. So, you can clearly see how swollen her fingers are. Okay? Nothing normal about that. It looks like she punched something. Right? You know how when somebody punches something and they get all swollen? Well, this is like probably the 14th, because they had the ice packs. They had the ice packs on for 2-3 days, brought her body temperature down to 33 degrees, 32 degrees. I'm pretty sure, I think I read one time 32 degrees. They're not supposed to go below 33. If you get into 32 degrees, it becomes life-threatening. Okay? So, and then they took off the ice caps, and soon after they did that, her body temperature started to rise because it was decomposing. And of course, everybody that was in the room, you know, demanded that they cool her down. So, you know, they put the ice, you know, a cooling blanket on her, an ice pack here, maybe an ice pack there. And this apparently was going on like that, up and down, up, take the ice packs off, put them back on, take them off, put them back on, as her body temperature was going up and down, because it wasn't that her body temperature was going up and down, people, she was decomposing. You can't have a dead body in a warm room and not expect to get reactions from it. Okay? Even if it's embalmed. Okay? Even if it's embalmed, it's still going to decompose. The embalming process only slows down that process. So, anyway, you can see right there how swollen her fingers are. And this would have been on the 14th or so. Okay? Hold on. Give me a minute. It's hard for me to see. You know that, right? So, hard for me to see. No, not that one. We want these ones up here. Okay, so in this picture, same day, you can see now I'm at some point in the next whenever I'm going to go in with my camera, right, and do with my, you know, my camcord. Okay, because in this case you can actually see her leg there. So this is what tells me it was around the 13th or 14th, because by then they would have taken off the ice caps. And what was happening here was Paige, who's been, you know, forever within the family as a friend and sort of like a sister to the girls, right? What do you call it? She wanted SHAMAY to, you know, to look good, right? To, as you know, as paint her toenails and, if need be, shave her legs, right? Because, you know, you lay it up in a hospital bed and the last thing you want is somebody to come along, pull up the blanket, and there you got hairy legs. From a girl's perspective, right? From a sister's perspective, from a friend's perspective, right? So she took it upon herself to paint SHAMAY's toenails, right? And if need be, she was willing to shave her legs. However, since coming into contact with these pictures and realizing what I've had all this time, right? I asked her, I said, well, did you notice any hair on her legs? Did you shave her legs? She said, no, there was no hair. Absolutely none. You couldn't find even the pock marks in terms of, like, you know, when you shave, right? And then you get that those little, right, where the hair comes through. She couldn't even find those, in part because she was so swollen. Fact is, though, she had no hair, people. That's another signature of embalming a body. They shave off the hair because the hair interferes with the makeup. So anyway, as you can see, there's her leg. And we can see the ventilator machine, which in this case I would say is probably a real ventilator machine, but it's not giving her oxygen. It was just put there as a prop. Okay. And that's why I'm doing this video, because I want people to really realize what kind of thieves we are dealing with. Okay. Does it matter if you go into a grocery store and steal a piece of meat in terms of, like, you know, roast beef, you know? Or does it matter if you're stealing organs from a hospital bed? Like, what one is more than $5,000 over theft? You know how they say below $5,000 is this kind of theft? Anything above $5,000 is that kind of theft? Theft is theft, right? False pretense is false pretense. Criminal mischief is criminal mischief. Gross negligence is gross negligence. Conspiracy is conspiracy, right? And we've seen that one. And in here, you see how she's painting the toenails, and if you notice, right, she's got those gloves on with that smock, because SHAMAY had this superbug that could have potentially made people ill. So we were required to put on gloves and wear smocks and, you know, walk gingerly around SHAMAY because she was so sick, right? But yet nobody was allowed to take pictures. And I've already put the call out. I'm hoping other people did. Seriously, I really do. You know, because maybe there are a couple of more pictures out there, people, and I just don't know about it yet. I'm not talking about the hairy you-know-what pictures that are being passed around through private Tasty Bonnie Bite bullshit crap fucking videos and pictures. I'm talking about real pictures that, you know, point the way in terms of how our public union sector is exploiting us and taking us for granted, right? So initially it started off with just trying to paint SHAMAY's toenails just as a girl thing, you know, sister to sister, friend to friend. And then, of course, while she was there, she thought, well, maybe I might shave Shamay's legs, but it turned out Shamay didn't even have any hair on her legs, and there wasn't any indication to even suggest that hair ever grew on her legs, right? As they're listing down in her medical files that she has edema, which is a form of swelling, when in fact it wasn't edema, people. Sure, it was a medical term to explain away the decomposition of Shamay's body, but it was not edema. It was the decomposition of a body that was being tampered with in terms of gross fucking abuse, where, you know, one minute they were freezing her ass down, to the next minute, you know, she started cooking, and then they'd bring her temperature down, and then, you know, at some point they have to fake the funk, take off the ice caps. You can't keep her on ice caps for 9 days, so they had to take off the ice caps, and quickly within fucking minutes or whatever it was, her temperature skyrocketed from one extreme to the other extreme, till finally by the 15th they wrote it in her files. I'm coming to the end of my video here because I pretty much said what I wanted. Right? They wrote it in their files that something happened in the middle of the night, right? Some medical term where they had to rush us in on the 16th so that the doctor could pronounce her technically brain dead, which is what they listed on her death certificate. But yet, further in her medical files, on the day when they turned off their AKA little mini ventilator, that what looks like an embalming machine encased with fucking metal around it, right? That's when they pronounced her dead. Death. Time of death. Like, how many times of death can you have in 9 days? That's 4 that I can count. April 11th, on the day she died, right? April 15th, on the night that something fucking happened that made them rush us in on the 16th, so that they could say they did a brain scan on the 16th and now can legally pronounce her dead. And then again on the 19th, sorry, we're on 4. Then on the 19th, right, they're now saying time of death is at 10:47 or whatever it was they wrote down. That's 4 times, people. If that isn't Frankenstein's science, I don't know what is. And that's how you catch them. You catch them in their lies. Right? And I've caught them in their lie, people. The only thing is there's no justice in the courthouse. I know what's going to happen, even if I file it, because I don't have a lawyer. Nobody's fucking stepping up to the plate out here for me. Nobody. I'm being fucking gang stalked on private mode now with you know who, which is insignificant in the great grand scheme of things. But outside of that, you know, where's the attention on what happened to Shamay when it comes to justice for Shamay? There is none. No YouTubers are talking about Shamay no more. They all fell off the fucking wayside for whatever reason. Like, I'm like, did somebody contact you and scare you? Did they tell you not to talk about Shamay? Like, you know, what happened? What, you were talking about Shamay with me for a while and then you just stopped. You know, you practically ignore me. And I'm not supposed to feel fucking alone on this shit as I'm going into a courthouse with a bunch of sharks. Right? And just to show you I'm serious. And this is why I say if something fucking happens to me, doesn't matter if it comes from that girl, or if it comes from the fucking cops, or if it comes from wherever it fucking comes from, the judge. Don't let Shamay's death be in vain, man. No, don't. Don't. Fight. You know, it's one thing talking about what they may have done to Kendrick Johnson, okay? Or what they may have done to Kanika Jenkins. It's talk, people. I'm not saying that what happened to them didn't happen, but where's the proof? It's hard to prove that, you know, thief. It's hard to prove. It's hard to catch a thief. Well, I have. See that? I have to print it out because I'm going blind. This is the Minister of Public Safety and Solicitor General. I'm putting him down on my lawsuit. That's provincial government. You got that one? They're on my lawsuit. They're on my lawsuit. On my lawsuit. On my lawsuit. Right? And then of course Fraser Health Authority. Right? So what do you think is going to happen to me, people? Oh, what do you think? Any ideas? What do you think? Do you see anyone helping me with that? I don't see anyone helping me with that. Why? Why? Why is nobody helping me with that? The ice packs, okay, the reason they put on ice packs on a medical, from a medical standpoint is because it brings down the body so that it can kind of reheal itself and slow down the acceleration of damage. The only thing is, people, that kind of stuff kind of has to happen right at the time of when the body is being damaged, right? Like, they use the fact that, like, if a small child, right, better for small children, you know, fall into a body of cold water, right, like a pond or something like that, and they're plunged into the water and they go without oxygen for 30 minutes or whatever it is. They bring the child out of the cold water and then warm up the child, even though the child hasn't breathed for 30 minutes because it was under cold water. The brain can sustain itself because of the coldness. It put it into a state of hibernation, right? But in the case of SHAMAY, the body had already been dead for an hour before they even came to the house, right? So the process of decomposing had already begun, right? And so in this case, the ice caps weren't to preserve, to help the organs heal themselves. It was to slow down the decomposition process, okay? It was to hide the fact that she had been harvested, right? And that they needed time in order to trick the family, right, before they could throw out the body. And the only way they could do that was put the body on display for a little while to make it appear like they had done their job, when in fact they're thieves. And that's why I'm calling in the crew. Okay? That's why, people, I'm calling in the crew. That's why I'm not afraid to do these videos, because as I call in the crew, I don't have anyone to represent me. Nobody's talking about this except me. All right? Even Tommy fell off the fucking wayside. Right? Truth for Reality hasn't done a follow-up. You know, Tiffany, yeah, she offered to do an interview with me. I said, anytime, whatever you want to talk about. But at the end of the day, I don't know. I think people are just either, they're scared, right? They're scared to fucking talk about it because they know in their heart what I'm saying is real. Or maybe they've been told not to talk about it because if they do, there will be consequences around it. And because they've got their own lives to live, they don't want to stick their necks out. Okay? If I go to any place out here, I'm already flagged with Uncle John's stuff pending. Right? We know how I was treated with Uncle John. To go to pro bono, I'd run into the same guy who treated me the same way he did, like, with Uncle John. He's going to treat me the same way, right? He's going to sit up there and fucking mock me, call me this, tell me that, and then send me to some maybe funky lawyer that's going to argue with me for 15 fucking minutes, tell me it's my imagination what happened to SHAMAY, and that, you know, I'll never win, and that, you know, but, you know, he's a professional lawyer, so he's going to give me 15 minutes of solid advice to go off and take it to the human tribunal. As if that's going to fucking stop this shit. Okay? Seems like they were preserving it. They were slowing down. They had already preserved her with the formaldehyde, with the embalming process. They embalmed her between the hours of 6 and 9 p.m. By the time I walked in at 9, she looked embalmed. She was embalmed, and her body proceeded to act as if it was embalmed, to the point where it was almost ready to explode by the time they finally did pronounce her dead on April 19th at 10:47 p.m. or whatever time they fucking pronounced her dead. Even though on her death certificate it says April 16th, even though we all know, I know, she died downstairs in the basement on April 11th. Like I said, how many times can you die? I need to ask those guys. How many times can you die, guys? How many times do you plan on dying? How many times do you want to die? Maybe that would be the better question. How many times do you want to die? I've seen people on life support and never seen ice. Well, that's because she came in with severe damaged liver, heart, kidneys, lungs, and her brain was swelling. So they put on the ice packs, hoping to slow down the swelling in the brain, as to slow down the damage that was going on in her fucking kidneys. But you see, that's the thing. She was dead, right? So it wouldn't have mattered what they were doing outside of just slowing down the decomposition, right? They took out the organs between 6 and 9. That's what they did. They embalmed her. And then, because her body was in a hospital room where the ambient temperatures is in the 70s, right? You know, for human comfort, that would have excelled the decomposition faster, even with the embalming fluid, right? So they had to cool her down for a few days to, what do you call it? You know, fake the funk. To fake the funk. Right? They removed her from care from the 16th. In her medical files, it says removed from care. Discharged on the 16th, even though she was still on their bed, hooked up to their so-called ventilator on the 19th. And then she was pronounced dead on the 19th when they turned off their so-called ventilator. As throughout the full 9 fucking days, well, 8 days or whatever, 6 days after they took off their freaking ice caps, her body temperature was going up and down, 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 in between ice packs and cooling blankets. And everybody freaking out. All to fake the funk. And I'm not supposed to be scared talking about it? But if I don't talk about it, it's just going to get buried in court. So if something happens to me for whatever fucking reason, right, got enough information, somebody can pick up on it and follow through on it and get justice. Justice for SHAMAY, and justice for all those other ones where we can't catch the thieves. Because we can catch the thieves with SHAMAY. By the grace of God. I didn't ask anyone to take those pictures, but if you notice, they're coming to me. Right? And some of them have been with me for almost 2 years, and I just didn't realize it, people. I mean, what a better time to get those pictures than now. Right? And don't you think? Yes, of course they took her organs. Why else would they embalm her? What is the purpose of not pronouncing somebody dead like they should have, just to take her dead body to the hospital, right, so that they can embalm her and put her on a hospital bed For what? What purpose? Other than to milk taxpayers of their money. No, they're going to want the organs. She wasn't a junkie. She wasn't a drug addict, right? She didn't have herpes. She didn't have no herpes zoysters. Didn't, you know, her immune system was good. She had type A positive blood. I don't know what that means in blood, but it was type A positive, right? Which, because she used to donate blood through schools, which I think should not happen in light of what's happening to young people dying off like fucking flies. You know, I think people need to start protecting their body fluids and their body parts a little more. They need to take that stuff more serious. SHAMAY was already pre-screened. They screen them in, it seems like they're starting to screen them in the freaking high schools. Right? And of course she had the baby 7 months prior to her murder, right? So she was good. She was the perfect candidate. She was healthy, 22 years old. I mean, who wouldn't want organs from a person like that? Anybody would be standing in line if they needed one from a, you know, right? From an organ perspective. Was they alone with her long enough to take? Well, of course. First of all, it only takes 1 hour. It only takes 1 hour to embalm a body. Just 1 hour. Okay? Now, can you do a good job in an hour if you're Russian? Well, probably not. That's probably why I seen all those pork marks on her arms. Right? And that shit leaking down. They were rushing because time was ticking. And they only had so long to do what they had to do. They kicked everybody out of the emergency room at 6 o'clock. Right? Saying that they had to prep her for ICU. And that people could come back at 9 o'clock. When Tisha left at 6 o'clock, SHAMAY wasn't swollen. Okay? When I showed up at 9 o'clock, the first thing that came out of my mouth is, she looked embalmed. Because I've seen embalmed bodies. I know what they look like. Right? When Tisha seen her next, Tisha noticed how swollen she was. And from 9 o'clock on, everybody that walked through that room noticed how swollen she was. Because she had been embalmed between the hours of 6 p.m. and 9 p.m. on April 11th. Okay? So they probably started as soon as they kicked everybody out. They just needed time to set up the OR, to go in there, take the organs, and then embalm her. So from 6 o'clock until 8 o'clock was that process up until 8:30, and then they quickly wheeled her off into ICU, put her on the bed, and try and covered up their fucking activity by ice capping her down, and then telling everybody that they can't take pictures, and that they have to wear rubber gloves, and that they have to wear smocks, because all of a sudden, out of the blue, SHAMAY had a super bug that came from her environment that lives on people's skin, which is fairly normal, but for some reason with SHAMAY, it exploded. So you can't go in unless you wear the gloves. And that's because they didn't want you feeling what her body was feeling like under the condition of being embalmed. Right? Shaniqua, I wish you could have got a sample of the liquid that was coming out of the wound. I've got them for sure. Yeah, I know, but the thing is, when you have a loved one in the hospital and you've got nurses peering in, looking at you or hovering around you, telling you not to do certain things, scaring the pants off you with a fucking superbug yet to boot, the last thing you're gonna do is really start poking around. especially if your instincts tell you something isn't right. In other words, everybody that was aware knew that something was wrong and seriously wrong, but it wasn't their place to say, hey, what are you people doing to Shamay's body? It doesn't look right. She kind of, I think she's dead. Why aren't you telling us that? And then what would the nurses be? Oh, we're going to call security. You're a troublemaker. How dare you accuse us of embalming a body in a hospital after we stole her organs? Oh, well, there's something seriously wrong with your mental state. Call security. Quick, quick. Right? Nobody's going to challenge authority in a hospital fucking setting of all places to boot, with security roaming around the halls. People take what's fed to them. If you were going to donate her organs, why do you think they don't pronounce her dead? Because her organs were harvested. Her organs were harvested, people. She was dead at the scene. If they would have pronounced her dead like they were supposed to, because she died under suspicious circumstances, as soon as the cops walked in and the paramedics walked in, the first thing was, what happened? Nobody knew what happened. Maybe she got food poisoning because she had gone out for 2 separate days, Saturday and Sunday, to major events, right? In terms of where there was large crowds of people, right? Nobody knew what was wrong with Shamay, okay? But because they didn't pronounce her dead, that gave them an opportunity to take her body to the hospital under false pretense and then do what they did, right? If they would have pronounced her dead, what would have happened in that case is, by law, they would have had to call the coroner's office in. The coroner would have came, taped off everything, done a correct fucking forensic investigation in terms of, like, you know, taking samples and looking for things and documenting it and that kind of stuff, right? Police would have fucking roamed through the house. Maybe, you know, they would have found the source of the fentanyl. You know, maybe they would have found her fucking clothes that were taken off and hidden off someplace, right? Who knows? Who knows what the cops would have found if they would have just said, oh, she's dead, now we've taken over, this is a crime scene, you know, and they went through the fucking house looking for what happened. But they didn't do that, because if they would have done that, her body immediately after that fact would have been taken to some autopsy room where a forensic autopsy pathologist, with the police witnessing the autopsy, would have started cutting into her body and taking pieces of this and pieces of that so that they could do tests to find out why she died. But they didn't want to waste the organs. So instead, they faked the funk. They tried to say she was alive. They hauled her ass out of here. They fucking left her on a bed in an emergency up until 6 o'clock. They had to book the fucking OR. They had to phone everybody up and say, hey, we got fresh organs in. Can you know, jump in the taxi. Come on, you know, it's your turn in line. You paid for them. This is your chance in life to have life, right? You know, get your ass here at the hospital by 10 after 6 because we're pulling out her fucking kidneys. And that's what they did. And then after they took out the organs, they embalmed her. But she's supposed to be alive, so how else are you going to prove that, how else are you going to show that she's alive unless you fucking embalm her and then put her in a hospital bed and then have nurses come around saying, oh, she's so sick, so sick, see, we wrote it down here how sick she really is, but, you know, we're just not going to tell you that, you know, what we really did to her because, you know, what's the chances of you finding out? We're the professional. We're not here to hurt you. This is the medical system. We love you. Good. You get it. Yeah. I completely understand, and I'm so sorry for loss. That beautiful lady, rip and get justice. Well, yeah, she needs justice, right? I don't know if I'll be alive to see it, though. Right? Because it's at a slow pace. Like, I'm a little nervous to be filing all this in a few weeks from now by myself. Right? Knowing what I know. What do you have to do to get a second autopsy? She's cremated. She was so putrid By the time they pronounced her death for the 4th time on April 19th, that I had to fight for the autopsy that 10 days later the coroner said she wasn't going to get, even though I've been fighting for it for 3 weeks. And then they said, okay, yeah, we'll send her off for an autopsy again. And then from there, I just had her body go to cremation. People, I could not have everybody come to a funeral and look at Shamay's bloated, ready to fall off the face, fucking jowl, right, body again, when they already been looking at her for 9 fucking days, decomposing. So we didn't have a funeral. Nothing. Right? I had her cremated. And that was it. And then we did a celebration of life. And I've been fighting for her ever since. And it got real quiet. And I just feel like I'm doing this all by myself. And I think what scares me more than anything else is if something happens to me, the fight itself will just fucking fade away. Because there's not enough people fighting for Shamay right now. So, you know, when I'm gone, then who's fighting for her? Nobody. And I'm like, well, don't tell yourself that nobody doesn't care. You know, it's not that they don't care. They're just too far away to do anything. They can't do anything. You can't expect people to help you on something that they're incapable of doing. You know, put yourself in their shoes. Because after a while, you start to hate humanity. Right? Because, you know, people are fucking shit. People who do this kind of shit are shit. No. I wonder if I can change scenes here. What would happen? Oops. I've changed a different scene here. And I'm just looking. I don't know what's going on. See, here's the hotkeys. This is something different now. Here we go. The source file is missing. Okay. All right. I'm just using something else here. Okay, let's just go back to scene 2. Like I said, you have a little more with that's all I've got imported into here is this. Right? Just pour my coffee. Sorry to miss so much. You'll have to come back and watch, Lucy. I'm almost done. Right? It came in some 3 new pictures that I've had all along. Sitting over here beside me for the whole time Shamay's been gone. Obviously having a little bit of panic attacks because as I'm writing this notice of claim, figuring out who I'm going to list down on my notice of claim, right, to draw attention to the severity of this matter, right, because I'm not going to let him get away with it. I'm not. I have been following you since I seen your interview with Tiff and with Tisha. I know then Julian did it. Yeah, Julian did do it, and the cops covered it up. And by the cops covering it up, because they didn't want to waste good organs and have the coroner cut into them to find out what the fuck happened with Shamay, right? You know, obviously I got tormented for over a year through family court because Julian wasn't held account to how, you know, SHAMAY was found in, you know. I mean, maybe they questioned him once, but that's all they did. Because as soon as they took her body, by 6 o'clock, that OR room was fucking booked. And people were coming in on the airplane to get their fucking stash of organs from SHAMAY's body. And then after they stitched her up, they embalmed her, and then they milked the taxpayers' dollars of $500,000 to keep a dead body on machine for 9 days, as they were getting frustrated with the family by not shutting off the fucking machine because she was rotting. Yeah, but he's gone now. So, you know, the court stuff was never about Julian per se, other than the cops failed to do their job, the coroner failed to do their job, and the hospital staff failed to do their job in relation to the death of somebody that died suspiciously. Instead, they covered it up so they could take her organs, and they thought I was stupid and wouldn't notice. And because I live in a shithole fucking country, there's nobody out here to fucking help me with it. I have to do this on my own. And it gets lonely. Right? And I try not to be afraid, because we're dealing with government public union dollars. We're dealing with hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars, and I have $0. Right? $0 against millions of dollars. I feel like that, you know, you swat a fly, like, you know, that whatever, I don't know, some little fable or fairy tale, you know, you get 7 flies with one swat. I feel like I'm kind of in that position. Right? Because I have to call in all these people. Right? This is, you know, I'm writing them down. I'm writing them down. This is the minister. This is the Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada, the Honorable David Lametti. He's on my lawsuit. The Attorney General. Right? I'm putting him down on my lawsuit. Right? That would be David Eby, the Attorney General of the province. And then there's the RCMP. Obviously, Surrey Detachment. Right? I don't think I take it to the main attachment, or maybe I'll put it to the main detachment. I tried to find their federal detachment, like their main office for federal RCMP. I couldn't find it. So I'm kind of stuck with maybe the main detachment, but I'm going to put them down. Right? I don't care if they know or not, because I don't expect to get anywhere in a corrupt courthouse, and that's why I'm doing these videos. Contact the coroner's service. So obviously I'm going to put down the coroner's office, because they ignored the fact when I sat up there and said SHAMAY's body was embalmed. That coroner completely ignored it. Completely ignored it, people. She should have investigated it, but she didn't want to, right? Instead, she wanted to act like, oh, that's not me. I wouldn't do that. I'm a good public union sector worker. God forbid if you're accusing me of something like that. I said, well, obviously you didn't embalm SHAMAY's body, but Fraser Health Authority staff did. What you going to do about it? Nothing. She's dead now. She's been pronounced dead. Is brain dead on April 16th. Moving along. Goodbye. Click. And then the Minister of Public Safety and Solicitor General, that's another section to the justice system. And that would be, what's his name? Honorable Mike Farnworth, right? So yeah, I printed them out. So I know who I'm filing this stuff to. Because I don't know what else to do, people. Julian is dead, so he reaped what he sowed. Now it's time for the hospital to be held accountable. I stand with you. Much love. Yeah, it is. It is. And the thing is, if I take Fraser Health Authority to court by itself, like I did with Uncle John, right? they're a corporation. They're in cahoots with the judges. It will get thrown out of court. Plain and simple. You go into my videos, you can see that. If I do it maybe this way, right, there's enough people in that room, enough men, right, that technically there should be one or two that are real men and step up to the plate and fucking deal with the issue, right? Whether I'm alive or not. But if something happens to me and it gets that far where all those guys are standing around looking at this shit, and then all of a sudden I fall off the grid, this is where people on YouTube or wherever need to fucking shake those bones, okay? And not let these bastards get away with it. Because if you don't shake those bones, then it's going to be somebody else on these beds being hooked up to these machines like they did with SHAMAY as they're stealing organs, because there's nothing that stops them, people. Nothing. They're good at what they do when it comes to deceiving families and the public, because they hide under, you know, the premise of they're a government worker, and therefore what they do and what they say is always right, when in fact it is not. So I'm done. Any questions before I go? I gotta start my day. I took the time to do this. I should have been typing. I was going to type, but instead I decided to do this. I wanted to share these new pictures with you, right? This is an actual ventilator. This is an actual ventilator. What they had when they turned off the machine on the 19th and pronounced her dead for the 4th time was completely different than this. Now, they could say it was a portable machine, but just by the way it looked like it was an embalming machine that had been encased with something metal to hide the fact that it was an embalming machine. Right? Because they had to change the color of her face when they turned off the machine. And the only way that you can do that with embalming fluid is to change the solution in terms of your coloring within the embalming fluid itself. Right? And this is where you're getting into Frankenstein science. Right? And let's see what else we can see here. I can't see people. Hold on. Hard for me to see. We read that. Andre never got to say goodbye to his aunt. He wasn't, I didn't even allow him to see his aunt because she was so grossly disfigured, and then just got more grossly disfigured. He didn't need to see that. He went to bed thinking he was going to get up and be with his auntie, and then he just never seen her again. So that's twice that's happened to Andre. Just waking up one day and poof, gone. Right? And of course, papers are falling behind me. Did you hear that? Just going through certain ones here. You can see how swollen her fingers are. This is about the 14th, right? So that's it. I'm done. Where am I? Okay, people, I'm gonna go now. I don't know what else to say. I don't know how to say it. Don't give up on SHAMAY, please. Please don't give up on SHAMAY. Please, I beg you, don't give up on SHAMAY. Alright? Please don't give up on SHAMAY.